Before we get into today's video, we have a short word from our sponsor. Today's sponsor is Hunt a Killer. If you're subscribed to my channel, a true crime related channel, then Hunt a Killer is the perfect subscription box for you. It is the subscription box for anyone interested in a good murder mystery. Everyone wants to be the one to solve a mystery, and Hunt a Killer lets you do just that. Whatever may interest you in the subject of true crime, whether it's the psychology of the killer who did it, or trying to figure out who did it or how they did it, this subscription box lets you take a dive into that world even more. With every monthly box delivered, you will receive high quality materials and use all the clues given to you during the series to solve the mystery in the end. Each series is 6 boxes, so for 6 months you will be on your little journey of piecing together everything from maps to handcrafted police reports to looking through high school yearbooks and even audio recordings. You get to be the detective in this storyline and ultimately catch the killer. The subscription service was crafted by some of the biggest true crime lovers, so they know exactly how to keep you on the edge of your seat each month. One thing that I personally enjoy about the entire concept behind the subscription box is that it does help you get away from your cellular device. I know in my free time I play a lot of murder mystery games on my phone. This is basically the same thing, except you're getting away from your cell phone for a little bit of time and doing something that you enjoy. That is also getting your mind working. Also, one of the other things I absolutely adore about it is that part of the proceeds for every box go to the Cold Case Foundation to help fund cold case investigations. So while you're solving your own little fictional mystery, you're also helping solve an actual one. For only $25 a month, you can see if you have what it takes to hunt a killer. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Gabby and welcome. I do have to say a huge hello to all my new subscribers. I've gained quite a few since my last video, so hello to all of you guys. Today's video is about a case that I've wanted to cover for a bit of time, and I've said that a lot in recent videos, but it's only because I'm trying to get to all those cases that I set aside and was like, I'll get to those eventually, and this is one of those cases. Today we are talking about a case that I feel like could have possibly been solved if it wasn't because of negligence. I feel like a lot of police officers did not properly handle this case, and a lot of police officers didn't take this case seriously. I'm not saying all police officers, because I know there was a large portion of them that really wanted to dive into this case and find out who was responsible, but they were kind of overshadowed by people who were higher up at the police department. They were not able to take this case on by themselves, and it was mostly the chief who was in control of everything, and his opinions I will share later on in this video, but it's just very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that because of one person's opinion, no one at the time was really able to do much. So with all that being said, let's get right into the video. This is the case of Evelyn Foster. Evelyn Foster was born in the year 1902 and was the daughter of an Otterburn, Northumberland garage proprietor. She was a former teacher and then moved on to being a self-employed taxi driver for her father's company. She was known to have a very pretty voice, having been a part of a choir. She was quite popular among her community. In the year 1931, she was well off financially. She spent most of her days doing taxi runs in Northumberland. The next part of the story that I'm going to share with you is what Evelyn herself told her parents and authorities before she succumbed to her injuries and passed away. On January 5th, 1931, Evelyn, she finished her shift but was stopped by a man who needed a ride. This man was someone she was not familiar with and was at a random road junction she passed on her way home. This unknown man told her he had been dropped off by another car and was going to travel to Newcastle, which was his final destination for the night. He told her he was originally going to take the bus, but he had missed it by about 20 minutes. Since Evelyn was heading in that direction anyway, she figured she would drive him as far as she could. This was a high fare job, so Evelyn was quite happy at the time she stumbled across this man. This happiness would not last long though. Evelyn was not heading all the way to Newcastle, but she was planning on taking him as far as she could. They stopped at a pub and she suggested he ask someone inside if any of them were heading to Newcastle after they were done at the pub. As he headed inside to ask people, she went to the back of her vehicle to get some extra petrol. And a few minutes later, the man came out claiming no one inside was heading to Newcastle. Fast forward a few hours and her parents were becoming increasingly worried about their daughter. They didn't know where she was and her shift had ended a few hours earlier. She was actually found by two co-workers who were driving past this location and they saw her car, they recognized it, and they decided to go check it out. Her car was found off the road near a sharp turn called Wolf's Nick. Her car had been set on fire and Evelyn herself was on the ground nearby. She had crawled out of the car hours earlier in an attempt to roll on the ground to put out the flames that had engulfed her body. When they went up to her as she was lying on the ground, she said, "Oh, that awful man, he has gone in a motor car." They brought her home immediately to see a doctor. As soon as this doctor took one look at her, he knew that she was not going to make it through the night. Her body was covered in burns, mostly on her lower back, buttocks, and thighs. Some of the burns were so severe that her skin had busted open, revealing her bones. Evelyn's nerve endings had been so burnt, she didn't actually feel any of this pain though. Police came in to do a quick interview because everybody knew that she was going to pass away very soon. So they did this quick interview and that's when she was able to tell them in detail as much as she could about this unknown man and what he did to her. She described this man as being around 5 foot 8 inches tall and possibly in his mid-20s, about 25 to 26. He was clean shaven. He was wearing a bowler hat and a dark tweed overcoat. She told authorities that he had hit her, taking control of the car, and then interfered with her. They were not quite sure what she meant by interfered. Her mother thought that it meant Evelyn had possibly been raped by this man, but when tests came back, it showed no signs of vaginal trauma or sperm. The chief constable of Northumberland Police was the man put on her case. Since no signs of rape were present, he figured she lied about it, that there was no man and that the car had simply caught on fire and she made up the entire thing, which is absolutely insane to think about. Back in those days, if you were 28 years old, which is how old Evelyn was, and you were not married, some people would view you as insane. That if you were not married by almost 30 years old, that there has to be something wrong with you. That's how this police chief viewed her. Evelyn also stated she had crawled out the back door, but when the car was found, the passenger side door was open, not the back. So again, some officers thought she made this up as well. They questioned over 100 people, including everyone at the pub, and allegedly, no one claimed to have seen this man go into the pub that night. Allegedly. That's what police told everybody. Now, because of this, they decided to close the case because they thought that Evelyn was lying about the entire thing. Now there is a crime writer. Her name is Diane Janes. She wrote a book about this case. She was given all the original police reports and she went over a map of the area where this occurred and the entire timeline, and she says that there is a small interval of time where no one was out on the streets that night, where no one would have seen this man because no one was around. She believes Evelyn was telling the truth about her experience. Diane said that in the reports, she did find a statement from someone that said they did encounter a man fitting the description of this unknown man that night. This person said that sometime later they saw a photo of a man on a local newspaper. This person had been charged and imprisoned for a previous sexual assault. He said that as soon as he saw the photo, it brought up a memory. The man had met this unknown man one time, and Evelyn's case had been brought up in conversation. The man said she got what she deserved. This man was strangely wearing an overcoat, a bowler hat, and mentioned how he regularly stopped people for lifts. Very coincidental. I know that may be a little bit confusing because I don't have the names of either of these individuals, but that's basically what happened. The police chief didn't want to hear anybody's opinions. He didn't want to see new evidence. He was basically set on the idea that Evelyn had fabricated this entire thing. Through Diane Jane's research, as she was looking through all of the original police reports, she found out that this man that she thinks could be responsible for Evelyn's death, that he was in the army, and that during the time that Evelyn died and this entire thing happened, he was on leave. Unfortunately, there is no DNA on file from this man, and Evelyn's family was never notified about this lead. Most police officers, because this was their chief, they went along with what he said, and they thought that she was possibly lying about the entire thing, or who knows if they even thought that. They probably had their own opinions, but because this was their chief, they decided to agree with what he said. They all pretty much failed to mention to anybody that at the scene they did find a pair of men's gloves and a scarf that looked like it belonged to a man. In an interview with Chronicle Live, Diane Jane said, "Evelyn lived in an era when a great many people thought that at 28 years old, she ought to be married and at home cooking her husband's dinner, not running a successful hire car business. Instead of approaching her story with an open mind, some people immediately disbelieved it. At the inquest, it was implied that she was a fantasist or a liar. Her family, too, were treated in a quite appalling way. They received dozens and dozens of letters from people accusing them of all manner of things. Other people who lived in and around Otterburn also became the victims of baseless gossip, and the police officers who were involved in the local investigation were unfairly criticized. Evelyn's family, some of her neighbors, witnesses, even some of the policemen who assisted in the investigation of the crime have been poorly served by what was written at the time and later. Worse still, there could be no doubting the fact that in the aftermath of her death, Evelyn had been the victim of prejudice against her sex and her class in a way that made me feel very angry. Once I had read the police files, it became personal. I have written about murder many times, but I had never before felt so strongly that here was a story that had to be told in full." Evelyn's father did end up writing a letter to Home Security where he criticized how police handled his daughter's case. He claimed that the car had been left unprotected for hours, meaning anyone could have just come up and touched it, and because of that, they couldn't gather proper fingerprints from it. He also stated that police didn't even check the area for footprints. The case is actually still open at the Northumbria Police Department, and many officers through the years have cared deeply about it, trying to piece together everything, but the officers back then on the case, not so much. Evelyn's sister said, "We were just young then, but that night made us old. We've turned it over and over in our minds ever since. We were such a close family. The hurt was terrible." If you do want to learn more about this case in general, I will link Diane Jane's book, Death at Wolf's Nick, The Killing of Evelyn Foster, down below in the description box for you guys to check out. Diane Janes is not the first person to come forward with a theory about who could have been responsible. Decades before, in 1977, Jonathan Goodman published a book called The Burning of Evelyn Foster, in which he put forward the theory that a man named Ernest Brown could have been the one who did it. About 2 years after the incident with Evelyn, a man named Ernest Brown, a farmhand, shot his employer and attempted to burn the remains by putting it in a car and setting it on fire. Strangely, the farm was not too far from Otterburn. Ernest fit the description of the man responsible. He also had the same accent as the one she described the man having, and he also had a friend that lived right outside Evelyn's village. Right before being executed for what he did to his employer, he was asked to confess any other sins of his. He mumbled something. It was guessed he said ought to burn, but some believe he may have said Otterburn. Was he possibly admitting to being the one who took Evelyn's life? This is unknown, but remains another theory in this case. Diane Jane's theory and Jonathan Goodman's theory are basically the two main theories in this case besides the chief's theory that she made up the entire thing. It is crazy that this case is still open in today's time, and we don't really have a lot to go off of. There's not a lot of leads, and there were never really many suspects when it came to this case, and it was mostly because police didn't take this case seriously. I'm not saying I agree 100% with Diane Jane's theory or Jonathan Goodman's theory, definitely not the chief's theory though, but I do believe that there could have been something else found out if police decided to really look into what happened. If you do want to learn more about this case, I will have all my sources linked down below in the description box, including the 2 books that were mentioned in this video. From all my research, Evelyn's case was basically just swept under the rug based off of one person's opinion on who she was as a person and her decisions to not be married by the age of 28 years old. Of course, like always, let me know your opinions about this case down below in the comments, and make sure to check out Hunt a Killer because they are today's sponsor for this video. And in my next video, I'm actually going to be unboxing some of the boxes, which I'm super excited about. So make sure to go check that out, and I will see you guys in my next video.